Hello, I'm Richard Doughty in Greenville, Tennessee. I'm standing in the entrance hall of the Dickson Williams Mansion in our town, one of the most historic houses in the state of Tennessee. It was built by William Dickson, Greenville's first postmaster, for his only child, a daughter Catherine, who was born in 1802. Mr. Dickson brought two men, craftsmen from Northern Ireland, Thomas Battersby and John Hoy, to design and build this house, which was designed after an attractive country seat in Ireland. The house was started in 1815 and completed in 1821. It hosted many important personages, including the Marquis de Lafayette, Henry Clay, Presidents Andrew Jackson and James K. Polk, Mrs. Frances Hodgson Burnett, Madame Octavia Levere, Henry Clay of Kentucky, and during the Civil War, Mrs. Williams had one son who favored the Union cause and two sons of the Confederate Army, so whenever the armies were in Greenville, the officers would always stay in this house. And it was in this house that General John Hunt Morgan spent his last night of September 3rd, 1864, before he was killed in the Williams Garden the next morning. The Confederate soldiers, his pickets, spent the last night, that September 3rd night, on the third floor of the house, and perhaps as many as 50 Confederate soldiers slept there that night. This chest is a Greene County piece around 1810, which originally belonged to Daniel Kennedy, the gentleman who introduced the bill in the North Carolina legislature in 1783, creating Greene County. On it are a pair of English brass candlesticks, and over the chest is a painting which is original to the house. It's a primitive, and it's in its original frame, and dates perhaps circa 1830. With our pair of American. This grandfather clock, or if you prefer, tall case clock, was made by Henry Wismer, who worked in Bucks County, Pennsylvania between 1797 and 1827. It has a broken arch top, solid cherry, with a beautiful fan carved in the door. On this side of the hall is a French Empire mirror, circa 1840 to 50. It has a marble base, and the gold leaf is surmounted by a bunch of grapes. And now we're going into the library. I'm standing before the full marble mantel in the library of the Dickson Williams Mansion, and over the mantel are pictures of William Dickson and his daughter Catherine Dickson Williams, for whom the house was built. These are copied from ivory miniatures that are in the Smithsonian Institution in Washington that were painted by Raphael Peale. The clock is an Eli and Samuel Terry and dates from about 1815. On each side of the mantel are arched bookcases. The one to my right is original, and the one to the left is a copy, because when this was the Greenville Hospital, this was made into a door. Much of the furniture in the room is contemporary. The table over here originally belonged to William Dickson and was made in Greenville around 1798. And over the table are early prints of Andrew Jackson, James K. Polk, and Henry Clay, who were all entertained here. The Victorian parlor suite dates from about 1850. It consists of a sofa, a gentleman and a lady's chair, and 4 side chairs. The library shelves are filled with books that belong to both the Dickson and the Williams families, and even some of their almanacs dated as early as 1827, 1831, 1834 are here on the table. Over here is a Bible stand which was original to the house and was returned to the mansion just a few months ago. I'm now going over to the pier glass, which is circa 1850, Victorian, of course. In fact, the head is the bust of Queen Victoria. Over the Victorian sofa, which is covered in horsehair, is a painting of Mrs. Alexander Williams' daughter-in-law. She was Mary Simpson of South Carolina and married the youngest son, Thomas Annear Williams. The painting was done by Samuel Shaver, who was considered one of the three foremost Tennessee portrait painters in the period of the 1850s and 60s. Now I'm walking toward the drawing room. This is the faux marble mantel in the drawing room, or the parlor if you prefer. It's the largest room in the house, and when restoration was started 10 years ago, this was 4 rooms and a hall, which are used by the Greenville Hospital. On the mantel are girandoles, which are original to the house, and flanking the mantel are a pair of sofas circa 1840 Empire that were also original to this home. Over here to my left is a pier table, one of a pair, and it has the mirror below, which was often used for ladies to adjust their skirts to see if they were straight. And over the pier table is a portrait of the only daughter of the house, Eliza Williams, who was married to William H. Sneed of Knoxville. This painting and the companion portrait of her husband were painted by Flavius Josephus Fisher, who was a portrait painter from Lynchburg, Virginia, who painted extensively in East Tennessee. And to my left here is an Empire small sideboard, which was original to the house, and on it is a beautiful astral lamp, which was made by Cornelius and Company in Philadelphia and dated 1843. Just for you. This Empire sofa, circa 1840, is original to the house, and it's so interesting because the arms are removable and paper money or small valuables could have been stored there. Notice that the doors have all been mahogany grained, and this, of course, was quite fashionable in the period when the house was constructed. The piano by T. Gilbert and Son of Boston, circa 1840, originally belonged to Mordecai Lincoln, who was a cousin of President Abraham Lincoln, and the Justice of the Peace who officiated at the marriage ceremony of Andrew Johnson and Eliza McCardle in 1827. On it is a violin which was purchased by Dr. Alexander Williams when he was in the Mediterranean area, purchased it in Italy, and presented it to his youngest son, Thomas Lanier Williams. On over to my left is a Pembroke table, which was made in Greenville around 1810. It's cherry with tulip poplar inlay, and on it is a companion lamp to the one that was on the small sideboard, also made by Cornelius and Company of Philadelphia in 1843. This gold sofa, also of an Empire style, was bought by Mrs. Andrew Johnson in Washington in 1869 when there was a sale of White House effects. She brought it to Tennessee and gave it to a friend of hers, a Mrs. Tipton, who lived in Elizabethton, and one of the Tipton descendants has presented it to the Dickson Williams mansion. This small melodeon originally belonged to Theodore Brinkerman, who, when he was a small boy, was a drummer boy at the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. Following the Napoleonic Wars, he came to Greenville and became the gardener for Mrs. Alexander Williams. And as long as he lived, he kept the gardens, which were absolutely magnificent, in pristine condition. Over the melodeon is the companion portrait of William H. Sneed of Knoxville, who was married to Eliza Williams. And this portrait also was done by Flavius Josephus Fisher of Lynchburg, Virginia. I'm standing in the dining room of the Dickson Williams mansion looking up at a magnificent French Baccarat chandelier. It originally, of course, burned candles and dates from 1820. Just below it is the table from which General John Hunt Morgan ate his last meal on the night of September 3rd, 1864 in this very room. This is half the table, the other half being in Birmingham, Alabama. This portrait is of Jacob Rumbold, who moved to Greenville from Lynchburg, Virginia in the 1850s with the building of the East Tennessee and Virginia Railroad. His wife, the companion portrait, is of Anne Dandridge Sutherland Rumbold, who was a niece of Martha Washington. The paintings were done by Samuel Shaver, the artist, the Tennessee artist who did the painting in the library also. On this wall is a sideboard of Greene County origin, circa 18 and 20, and we think the maker was William McClure, who advertised in the Greenville newspapers of 1820 that he could make sideboards as fine as any brought from the Atlantic seaboard. On it is a pair of knife boxes that originally belonged to William Dickson, and we feel that these knife boxes were brought from either Baltimore or Philadelphia, because not only was Dickson our first postmaster, he was our leading merchant, and he made frequent trips to those cities to buy goods for his store here in Greenville. On the sideboard is a covered punch bowl, circa 1840, with matching cups, and the pair of Sheffield candlesticks on each side are original to the mansion. The sconces are quite early, perhaps as early as 18 and 10, and they came from another old home in Greenville. The portrait of Anne Dandridge Sutherland Rumbold on the far wall is, of course, the companion portrait with her husband. And the interesting thing about these portraits, they were hung in the Rumbold house, which is 2 blocks up the street. And when the Civil War broke out, the canvases were taken out, rolled up, the frames were cut in two and placed under the floor, and then at the conclusion of the war, fearful that one army or the other might destroy them, the paintings were brought from the floor and were restored to their frames. The built-in cupboard holds a fine collection of pink luster, circa 18 and 20. There's a wonderful picture on the center shelf, a tea set on the top 2 shelves, and small pieces, cups and saucers and tea plates on the lower shelf. Over the mantel is a painting by Samuel Shaver of the 3 grandchildren of Mr. and Mrs. Jacob Rumbold. Mary Lee, Thomas Henry, the one in the center is a little boy with a dog between his legs, and Kate May on the right. Kate May was married to Andrew Johnson Jr., and as I said, these children are the grandchildren of Jacob and Anne Dandridge Rumbold. On this faux marble mantel are Bristol vases, 2 pairs, one decorated in blue and the other in pink. And on the hearth is a small empire chair, similar to the ones in the dining room, dating from 18 and 40, and it has the fiddle back, and the other chairs in the room have their original horsehair. This cherry broken arch corner cupboard, or if you prefer swan's neck cupboard, was made in the Greenville area between 1795 and 18 and 10. It's in 2 sections, 2 drawers in the middle. The doors have all their original glasses, and the panes are surmounted by this little arch decoration at the top. In the cupboard are some examples, fine examples, of English Staffordshire. Some of the plates have American scenes. Here you have examples of copper luster and the dark blue Staffordshire, a piece of silver resist, and early cups and saucers. This cup and saucer with the American eagle is original to the house. It's Chinese export, and we feel that the Dickson or the Williams family had a whole set of this at one time, but we only have a cup and saucer left. This table of cherry of the Empire style with rope legs originally belonged to President James K. Polk, and of course is half a banquet table. On it is a bowl, black Staffordshire, and on each side are Sheffield candlesticks, which were original to the house. And here is a Sheffield set of candle snuffers on its original tray, which would be used to snuff the wicks of the candles so that the next time they were lighted, they would burn evenly. This small room between the dining room and kitchen we feel was used as a small family dining room when the Williams family was not entertaining guests. In it is this nice early lantern, originally burned oil, which dates from about 1840. Just below it is a fine Greene County hunt board, sometimes called a slab. which would be used when fox hunts were held. They would be taken outside, food and drink would be placed on them, and the horsemen would come up and lean down and get their food or drink without dismounting. Over them are a pair of Civil War prints of Nashville. And to the right of the hunt board is an early Windsor chair made in this area of the country, perhaps Washington County, possibly as early as 1815. I'm standing in the kitchen of the Dickson Williams mansion, and in this room are some most unusual pieces. This press, made before 1820 in Greene County, is quite unusual from the fact that there are 13 drawers on each side of the glass compartment. Each drawer is labeled with the letter of the alphabet, and each drawer is beautifully dovetailed. It's made of cherry, and in the press is a set of gold band china, which belonged to the Williams family circa 1860. The harvest table in 4 planks is of Greene County origin around 1810, and it's walnut. There are 14 country Windsor chairs in the room of various styles, and they complement the larger pieces. Over here is a very unusual 4-back ladder-back chair, dates from about 1790. Behind it is an early Tennessee flax wheel. On the mantel is an OG clock circa 1850, and surmounting it flanking it are 2 pots. This coffee pot, dark blue Staffordshire, is original to the house, and a dark blue teapot on the other side. English brass candlesticks. In the fireplace you see the crane with the pots, and this of course where all the cooking was done. The beams which you see are original to this room, and when this was the hospital they were covered over, but when we started restoration the wallboard was removed, and lo and behold the beams were there. The fireplace was also covered up, and when the coverings were taken off, here it was in its original configuration, including the holders for the crane. This tiger maple sideboard was made by the Bergner family, who lived in the Horse Creek area. They also did the press which we saw earlier. It's off tiger maple, has its original sandwich glass pulls on it, and it seems that when the Bergners came to Greene County at the conclusion of the Revolutionary War from Germany, they were makers of fine violins, but there was no market for fiddles on the American frontier, so they turned their hand to making furniture, and their favorite wood was tiger maple because that was the wood from which the violins would have been made. Above the sideboard is an early Greene County cap and ball rifle, and also it has a tiger maple stock. I'm walking upstairs over the kitchen to the slave quarters where the servants who worked in the house live. Perhaps the cook and her husband and their children, perhaps as many as 8, occupied this room. Coming up into the servants' or slave quarters, and to my right is a very, very early loom dated. It was brought to Greene County from Virginia in 1783 by the Humbert family, and occupied a position in the Humbert house where a fire had been burning for over 175 years. To the right is a spinning wheel which would have been used in spinning. The small wheels are called flax wheels, and the large wheels are called spinning wheels. Here we have 2 rope beds, this one from Greene County and the other one from Hawkins County. They're put together with the ropes, and of course that expression, sleep tight, came from the fact that oftentimes the ropes would sag and they would have to be tightened up, and of course the other part of that, don't let the bed bugs bite, referred to the fact that many times straw ticks were placed here, and you had to confront those very unsightly little insects. Here we have a yarn winder, which is properly called a weasel. And it's the origin of the song "Pop Goes the Weasel," because when there would be so many turns of yarn placed on here, there would be a sound, and that was the origin of that song. Here you have some more of the country Windsors, the Arrowbacks, and this cradle is a very early cradle, East Tennessee cradle, probably as early as 1790. Here again we have another OG clock, and on each side are English brass candlesticks. This stairway is the finest feature of the house. It's a 3-story circular staircase with a mahogany and cherry rail, and the stairs are intricately carved at the outside. It was done by Battersby and Hoy. The staircase, as I said, is a full 3 floors, and it's most unusual in the fact that the railing is continuous. I'm now going into what we call the Burnett room. As I said, this is the Burnett room, so called because Mrs. Frances Hodgson Burnett was entertained here, and we have the very desk upon which she wrote Little Lord Fauntleroy. The bed is a Jenny Lind style, around 1820, and over it is a painting of Margaret Williams, who was born here in the Civil War period. This painting was done by Lloyd Branson of Knoxville, as was the one of her brother, which is on an opposite wall. The blanket chest is a Greene County piece around 1815. And over here we have a small Greene County table. Wonderful daguerreotypes of the Williams and the Ripley families are all around the room. And here we have one of 4 chairs, Empire style, with the cane seat. Notice that the woodwork in this room is painted a pale green, and over it is a gold leaf mirror which dates from about 1810. On it are a pair of French vases. And over here to my left is a wonderful East Tennessee secretary, or if you prefer, desk and bookcase. Has all of its original glass. The brasses on the drawers are every one original, a most unusual interior, and on it is a sandwich glass lamp circa 1830. This Greene County chest was made around 1810, and it has very nice inlay around the bottom of it. The print is a Nashville scene of Civil War vintage, and in it you can spy the Hermitage, the home of Andrew Jackson, and also the tomb where he and Rachel Jackson were buried. Over here we have a Victorian sofa, circa 1850, and this is the very desk that Mrs. Frances Hodgson Burnett wrote Little Lord Fauntleroy on. It came to us from her auction sale at New Market, Tennessee, where she lived. On it is a first edition of Little Lord Fauntleroy, and also a note signed by Mrs. Burnett. This painting is of Lucian Williams, the brother of Margaret, that we saw just a little earlier. He also was born here in the house during the Civil War period, and both Margaret and Lucian died in the same year, 1897. I'm now entering the room in which General John Hunt Morgan spent his last night on that of September 3rd, 1864, before he was killed in the Williams Garden the next morning. This is the very bed in which he slept, and many of the pieces in here are original to the room. The table, the washstand, the dresser were all here when Morgan slept here. And this is the original mantle that was here when Morgan slept here. Also, the overmantel mirror and the andirons are original. Notice the wallpaper in this room, and also that all the woodwork has been mahogany grained, which was the way it was. The baseboard has been marbleized. Many of the rooms were wallpapered, we feel, but because of the cost, this is the only one that has been done. But as we can afford it, perhaps other rooms will be wallpapered. The rugs are very early. This one to my left is a Chervon and is reputed to be 200 years old. And this small one is also an Oriental, much over 100 years. This small room, we feel, was cut from the hall shortly after the house was constructed and the children began to arrive. It could have been used as a sewing room, but it is furnished with a day bed, with a small chest of drawers, both of Greene County origin, a Greene County whatnot, and 2 Empire chairs with cane seats. I'm entering the master bedroom, the room occupied by Dr. and Mrs. Alexander Williams. A pair of chairs right here were original to the house. They're quite intricate and they have their original cane seats. This Empire sofa dates from about 1840, and over it is a rare print of the Battle of Fort Henry, which occurred in 1862 and opened the way to Nashville. Over here is a tea table from McMinn County, circa 1820. And here the Williamses, Dr. and Mrs. Williams, would have a wonderful view of their garden, laid out in geometric designs and stretching all the way to Main Street. The first part of the garden was called the Green Lot because of the primeval trees that were there and all the beautiful flowers and things which were to be seen. In one spot was a mound covered with ivy and violets, where Mrs. Alexander Williams, as Catherine Dickson, was born in 1802 in a log house which was the original home of William Dickson here in Greenville. This Chippendale style chest is of Greene County origin. It's solid walnut with the solid ends and an OG style foot. The painting above it is of Dr. and Mrs. Williams' granddaughter, Katie Eldridge, who died of scarlet fever when she was only 7 years of age. The pair of lamps here are sandwich glass in a heart design and date from circa 1830. This early Greene County cradle belonged in the Snap family, and 6 generations of that family have been rocked in this very cradle. The tester bed is mahogany and is no later than 1820, and it descended in the Lancaster family. On the tester bed is a wonderful Greene County coverlet. It's often referred to as a summer and winter coverlet because one side is used in the winter and the lighter side in the summer. It was made by a Greenville woman, a Mrs. Woodyard, in 1850 and woven on a loom. At the foot of the tester bed is a marvelous Greene County blanket chest, beautifully dovetailed with bracket feet, and one of the most unusual features are these marvelous strap hinges, wrought iron, made by some early Greene County blacksmith. Over here is a wonderful little Bible table, or Bible stand as it's often called, from about 1840, and over it is a religious picture. The candlestick and the Bible, of course, are quite early. The candlestick of English origin and the Bible printed about 1820. Here you see some Victorian pieces, a love seat, a chair, and a small footstool dating from about 1850. On the mantel is a wonderful Seth Thomas clock, very much like the Eli Terry clock in the library, except perhaps 10 years later. In the center of the room is a wonderful French chandelier of blue glass with prisms, and there's burning candles, and it dates from around 1815. A little portmanteau, as it's called, a small chest that Catherine Dickson carried with her in 1811 when she was entered at Salem, the Moravian Academy in Salem, North Carolina, which is now Salem Academy. And it has its original handles, and even some of the original paper is in the little chest or portmanteau. And now I'm going into the nursery, which is just off the master bedroom. Here we have a small Jenny Lind daybed, possibly used as the sleeping place for the nurse who looked after the children. We have a small child's rocker here, and this style of rocker is often referred to as a Lincoln rocker. This bed, which folds up, was used by the Mitchell family in Greenville many, many years ago, and it's quite intricate in the way that the different parts of it fold so it could be moved from room to room. This little chair has an interesting origin. When Mrs. Andrew Johnson's daughter, Martha Johnson Patterson, left Washington, she had acted as the first lady because her mother was an invalid. She had 6 of these little chairs made, and they were originally covered with carpeting from the White House. She gave them to special friends of hers in Greenville, and this one was given to the Ripley family who lived on North Main Street. We call this the Ripley room because many of the pieces here were donated by that family. And this is an early land grant dated 1791 for land in Greene County to the Ripley family. Here we have another Jenny Lind style bed, and on it an early Greene County coverlet woven on a loom. Above it is a portrait of David S. Ripley, who was a great friend of the Williams family, and they were quite musical and often enjoyed musicals together. Over here we have a wonderful little bedside table, so unusual because of the two drawers and the fact that it has drop leaves on each side. This Greene County chest is from the village of Caney Branch. It's Lake Sheraton. There's a little reading down the sides. It has the panel ends, and it has the very large drawer at the top, and then the three graduated drawers. Over it is a portrait of David Shaw Ripley Jr., who was the son of the Mr. Ripley over the Jenny Lind bed. And the portrait of his sister, Ida Ripley, they are the children of, as I said, Mr. David S. Ripley, who lived on North Main. The frames are quite intricate, and instead of being oils, these paintings are pastels, hence the glass over them, because if glass were removed, the chances are that the pastel portraits would flake, and very soon there would be no portrait. The third floor is as large as this entire house. The Williams family always said it was used as a ballroom. We do know that on the last night of Morgan's stay here, September 3rd, 1864, it was a very, very rainy night, and he went out and brought his pickets in, and pallets were placed on the floor up there, and it is said that as many as 50 Confederate soldiers perhaps spent the night there the night before Morgan was killed. The Dickson Williams mansion has had a rather checkered career. It ceased to be a private residence in 1870, and in 1875 it became a school and continued as a school until 1890. At that time it became a tobacco factory, and Old Gold cigarettes were first made in this house. They were originally called Pure Gold. In 1895, the building was sold again, and it was converted into the Morgan Inn, a hotel, and consisted of this situation until 1913. In that year, Dr. C.P. Fox Sr. bought the property and made it into the Greenville Hospital with a nursing school connected with it. It continued as the Greenville Hospital and Sanatorium until the late 1970s. It was bought by Tacoma Hospital, who wanted the bed certification, and they in turn sold it to the government of Greene County. An organization, the Dickson Williams Historical Association Incorporated, was founded, of which I am the president, and we were the agency that received the house from Greene County under a 99-year lease. We have also been the agency which has been responsible for restoration of the house, which started in 1987. We have furnished the house beautifully in antiques of the period, and in this year, 1998, we hope to see its completion with the building of the porches and the restoration of the magnificent garden. This was originally the back entrance to the Dickson Williams mansion, used by the carriages who came in a small semicircular drive, and the passengers would alight and enter this way. But the main entrance was from the Main Street side, which is in the process. The porches are being restored, and that will be the main entrance when they are complete. Also, the garden is on that side, and it will be restored as far down as the parking lot where the General Morgan Inn is situated. This is the front of the Dickson Williams mansion, which is in the process of restoration. The porch here will be the main entrance to the house, and on the kitchen wing will be another porch which will be in an L shape. The front door is in the process of being made, and when it is restored, the restoration of the gardens will take place. They will be arranged in parterres with geometric designs and a row of boxwood coming up from the parking lot. The windows will also have shutters on them, and this will see the completion of this house, which was built between 1815 and 1821, which was, the restoration was started in 1987, and on this day, April 20th, 1998, we have reached this position as far as the restoration of this marvelous historic house is concerned. I hope you've enjoyed this tour as much as I have in giving it to you. I hope you will visit Greenville, Tennessee, which is we consider the jewel town of the mountains, and come and see the wonderful historic treasures that we have here, including the Dickson Williams Mansion. We are hopeful that this summer it will be open on a full-time basis, but in the meantime you may see it by appointment. Thank you very much.